لا أعتقد أن أحد هناك في شمال قطاع غزة لديه كفاية من الطعام. والأعداد أكبر من الطاقم المتواجد في قسم سوء التغذية.
Every day, the cries of hungry children fill the halls of Kamal Adwan Hospital in North Gaza. Some children here at the malnutrition clinic have never known a full meal in their lives. After the Hamas attacks on October 7th, Israel cut off fuel, food and water from Gaza. Within weeks, starvation had spread in the north. Israel doesn't allow foreign journalists into Gaza, so we worked with Palestinian reporters who filmed for us at Kamal Adwan Hospital in June. Abdul Aziz is 5 months old and starving. Dr. Ahmed Nasser has been taking care of him with what little resources the hospital has on hand.
حالة خطرة جدا. الطفل لا يستقبل أي شيء في جسده، يعني أي شيء بيدخل الجسد بيتم إخراجه بدون الفائدة للطفل. الأم كانت أيامها قادمة من المستشفى نتيجة أن الطفل يعاني من إسهال مزمن وتقيؤ، وطبعا ارتفاع في درجات الحرارة، ارتفاع حرارة الجسم. في كتير فجأة بتظهر لك حالات بشكل مفاجئ بشكل كبير، يعني بتلاقي مثلا في يوم من الأيام بتلاقي لك مثلا 30-40 حالة نفس السبب. ياخذ الباء شيء طبيعي حاليا؟
عادي يعني مش كثير. قعدوا يمكن 10 أيام فيش حليب صناعي، انقطع من البلد كلها. فابني عانى من جفاف شديد جدا بحياتي كلها. ما قلقت شيء قلق، خايفة لا سمح الله ان انا يعني افقد شيء.
شوف هذا. سامشين؟
On the second day of filming, Abdul Aziz's heart stopped.
يلا بالعجل. لا عشان السجيه، بدنا السجيه. شوي.
حطيت ادرينالين يا جماعه، اتروبين. بسرعه يا علي بسرعه.
Doctors resuscitated him, but he remained unconscious in intensive care. The following week, on June 30th, Abdul Aziz al-Harani died. He was one of at least 38 people in Gaza who've died of malnutrition since October 2023. All but one were children. Israel and its most powerful ally, the United States, deny that aid to Gaza is being blocked. But our reporting has found that Israel has restricted the flow of humanitarian assistance since the start of the war, creating one of the worst man-made famines of the 21st century.
إشي صعب علينا إنه كيف فقدنا الولد بسبب جوع صعب.
When famine starts, it takes the youngest first. It's been 5 months since Hanan Assaf and her husband Mohammed buried their 2-year-old son, Khalid. This is Khalid in happier times, before the war on Gaza and the starvation that followed.
هذه الحرب دمرت كل إشي، بيوت، البني آدمين، الشجر، الحجر، كله تدمر. هذه غرفة ابني الصغير، حرقوا لنا إياه الاحتلال، ما خلونا ذكرى لا أي حاجة. الولد ما كان فيه ولا أي حاجة للأمانة يعني. فجأة الولد بدأ يزن، أكله خف لأنه مش موجود الأكل. كان هو متعود على اللبن، رز، فواكه ياكل الولد، وهذا طبعا من بداية الحرب بدأ يخف شوية لحد درجة إنه انقطع نهائياً. ما كان فيش موجود أبداً إلا الخبازة، ما فيش شيء في السوق. والأسعار خيالية إذا موجود. ولد صار شبه هيكل عظمي، خلص بالمرة يعني، حمله زي المولود. بطل الولد يقدر يقعد ولا يتحرك ولا يمشي، ضعف جسمه نهائياً الولد. أخذته على كمال عدوان، ما كان في طب ولا في علاج أساساً. آخر يومين حطوه في العناية على الجهاز التنفسي.
Khalid died of severe dehydration and malnutrition at Kamal Adwan Hospital on February 2nd, 2024. Fears of a famine in Gaza started as early as the beginning of the war. Israeli leaders announced a crippling blockade in response to Hamas's attack on October 7th, in which nearly 1,200 people were killed. 251 were taken captive.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור.
לא נאפשר סיוע הומניטרי של מזון ותרופות משטחנו לרצועת עזה.
Israel launched an unrelenting bombing campaign ahead of a bloody ground offensive. Gaza's health ministry says more than 40,000 Palestinians were killed since the start of the war, most of them women and children. And now famine has spread throughout the Gaza Strip.
لم يتم تسجيل أي حالة سوء تغذية ما قبل الحرب.
Dr. Ahmed Nasser is 28 and only 2 years out of medical school. He's a pediatrician at Kamal Adwan Hospital in North Gaza, where the most serious malnutrition cases are treated. His staff of 8 is responsible for hundreds of starving children.
غالبية الحالات بتيجي في إسهال مزمن، بتيجي في أمراض في الصدر، لأنه في النهاية سوء التغذية هي تؤدي إلى ضعف للمناعة. كان هذه الأعراض أكثر ما ظهرت بعد 5 شهور من الحرب، وبلشت الأمور تزداد. فالكثير من الأعراض اللي ممكن طبعا من ضمنها اللي كنت تؤدي إلى الوفاة.
دكتور أحمد، السلام عليكم. ممكن تشرح شوية الوضع اليوم؟ كيف الوضع اليوم في غزة؟
صراحة الوضع الحالات سيء، وفي طرد عدد كبير من الحالات. بالنسبة للقصف في الأيام الفترة الأخيرة بدأت تزداد الوتيرة كثير في شمال القطاع.
أول مرة ردت أسألك في رأيك منو المسؤول عن الوضع في غزة؟
الاحتلال الإسرائيلي هو المسؤول الأول في النهاية عن اللي بيصير في قطاع غزة بشكل كامل.
ما فيش أمان في أي مكان من ناحية القصف والصواريخ والقذائف. بعدين الأكل والشرب مش متوفر. أنا بخاف أفقد حدا من أطفالي بسبب الجوع لأني فقدت طفل. قبل كنا نفكر كيف بدنا نجوز أولادنا، نودي أولادنا جامعات، نفكر في المستقبل يعني. هل لقيتها ما بتفكر أصلاً إلا إنك تقدر توفر لأولادك حالياً الأكل والشرب خلاص.
Israel has maintained a partial siege on Gaza since 2007 after Hamas was elected. Before the war, an average of 500 trucks of humanitarian aid and commercial goods entered Gaza each day. Now it's less than half that, despite the desperate need. And for months, the trucks that did try to get through were attacked by far-right Israeli groups as police and soldiers did little to stop them.
إحنا ناس مدنيين ما إلنا بأي مشاكل. من أبسط الحقوق يتوفر لنا الأكل والشرب لأهل غزة.
By July, independent UN experts said there was a full-blown famine in Gaza. But Israel says that isn't true and blames aid shortages on humanitarian groups. The US won't publicly admit Israel is blocking aid, which is a war crime.
It is widely known and documented in the humanitarian community and the US government that Israel has been blocking humanitarian assistance since the start of the Gaza conflict.
Stacey Gilbert was a senior officer in the US State Department and specialized in humanitarian assistance. She resigned in May after the Biden administration concluded Israel isn't blocking aid.
They have made a policy decision to support Israel unconditionally.
We conducted more than 20 interviews with the UN, aid workers, and former US officials. They described how Israel restricts aid, denies deliveries, and creates bottlenecks. What are those specific ways of aid being blocked?
It's everything. There are administrative obstacles, not enough customs officials checking these items. The food that goes bad because it's waiting on the trucks. So it's like a spigot. They turn on, they turn off. They decide that some things can't go in, other things can. Aid workers' visas are denied or delayed, and when the pressure builds, they will allow more assistance in, but then the spigot gets turned off again. So Israel and the United States government will say, look, some assistance is going in. It's never been enough. And they know that.
The US gives Israel billions of dollars in security funding each year. There's a US law that prohibits arms transfers to countries that are blocking humanitarian assistance.
The administration deliberately denies the facts on the ground because it would trigger consequences to cut off security funding. It allows the weapons sales to continue. The weapons are the engine that fuel this war, and we are not taking responsibility for our role in it.
And even when aid crosses the border, Israel makes obstacles for humanitarian workers to deliver supplies inside Gaza. Checkpoints, damage to roads, and lack of coordination delayed aid distribution and worsened the hunger crisis.
We were hampered almost every single step of the way in the missions that I went on. There's a lot of restrictions on our access to places, which results in delays or even danger to staff.
Tess Ingram was delivering aid to Kamal Adwan Hospital with a UN convoy in April when it came under fire near an Israeli checkpoint.
Gunfire broke out and bullets hit the vehicle that I was in.
Here, and then I went here. This one, here.
My door and my window of our armoured vehicle.
Do you know that it was the Israeli military doing the shooting, and who were they targeting?
I know that the shooting came from the direction of the checkpoint, and it seemed to be aimed towards these apparent civilians who were just to the east of our convoy.
Did you reach out to the Israelis about this, and what was their response? Did they investigate what happened?
We were told that it wasn't from the direction of the checkpoint and that they weren't involved and no investigation was conducted.
Did you manage to get the aid delivered?
We were held there at that holding area for hours more, to the point that the mission wasn't feasible, and we had to turn around and go back to Rafah. So these sorts of delays that really prevent us from doing our job, and at the end of the day, it's the kids that pay the price for that. And that is heartbreaking. And how do you explain that to a mum who is asking you, what can you do for my child?
Nearly 300 aid workers have been killed so far. The majority were Palestinians working for the UN. This has been the deadliest conflict for the organisation since its founding. UNRWA, the UN Organisation for Palestinian Refugees, says many of its facilities and convoys have come under attack despite coordination with Israeli forces. Israel has tried to dismantle UNRWA for decades. It's considered the backbone of aid delivery. If it collapses, no other organisation could take its place. It's not just delivering aid that can be deadly. Scores of civilians have been killed while collecting it. In February, more than 100 Palestinians seeking food from aid trucks in North Gaza were killed, and hundreds more injured after Israeli forces opened fire on them. It's known as the Flower Massacre.
So when we hear of the Flower Massacre, it's not one isolated incident that was some accident.
We partnered with open-source investigators at Forensic Architecture to examine the data behind attacks on people seeking aid. We found more than 40 attacks.
We saw so many videos of people being attacked in similar circumstances. So we actually went through all of those videos and we geolocated as many of them that we could, and we plotted them out on the map.
The work we are doing is identifying the repetition of certain tactics. Then we can start to establish a pattern.
As we looked into more of these attacks, we started to see that they were systematic in nature and not arbitrary.
Looking at it like this, seeing that they're all concentrated here and here, could that be a coincidence?
No, so those specific points of concentration, those are where civilians come to receive the aid.
The investigation revealed that Israeli attacks didn't just kill civilians seeking aid.
We also have attacks on bakeries.
They also destroyed key infrastructure that received humanitarian assistance.
When aid is initially distributed, flour is distributed to bakeries, bakeries are targeted. When aid starts to be distributed to schools, then schools become the target.
Forensic architecture documented 16 attacks on bakeries between October and November, sometimes while people lined up for bread. And 107 shelters that received aid had been destroyed up until January.
We have attacks on aid personnel. This includes civil service workers like police.
Then, at the start of the new year, there were attacks on police and civilians who escorted humanitarian convoys.
Police had to suspend their operations in escorting the convoys. After that, World Food Program had to suspend its operations as well. And then tribal communities started to step up to facilitate aid. And then we see strikes on those communities, specifically targeting those people.
So this is purposeful. This is a purposeful military tactic, according to the data.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing you can conclude from that is that the consistency of attacks shows that it's systematic in nature.
I mean, Israeli officials say over and over again that they are not intentionally denying the people of Gaza aid and that they are not guilty of starving Gaza.
I think the evidence points to the opposite.
They're creating essentially a chilling effect so that it sends a clear message that if you're receiving aid, if you're planning aid, if you're working with it in any capacity, you are at risk, you're in danger.
We asked Israeli authorities about the findings of our investigation. They did not respond.
مجتمع الدولي في النهاية ما تم فعله من الاحتلال الإسرائيلي على مرأى الجميع والكاميرات جميعها. ما تم إيصاله إلى الإعلام هو جزء من المأساة والمجاعة التي يعاني منها السكان شمال قطاع غزة.
The Biden administration has refused to condition US weapons on Israel improving the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The measures the US has taken, from opening a pier to airdropping aid, have largely been ineffective.
عندك رسالة للسياسيين الأمريكيين فشي بسيط إلا نقدر نقول لهم أي شيء شو تريدنا نقولهم.
وأبسط حل إنه في النهاية فتح الحدود بشكل كامل لوصول المساعدات لجميع الأهل في شمال القطاع وسواء قطاع غزة بشكل كامل. أبسط شيء ممكن تعمل انتهاء الحرب.
Famine is not a foregone conclusion in a conflict. Famine happens when assistance is blocked. It is the outcome of a deliberate decision.
In April, Stacey Gilbert was asked for her input on a Biden administration report on whether Israel was committing war crimes in Gaza.
I was shocked to see that it said in very clear terms, it is our determination that Israel is not blocking humanitarian assistance.
You had advised that that wasn't the case. Is that correct?
Yes. The subject matter experts were removed, and the report was moved up to a higher level. We were told you will see the report when it is released publicly.
And then the report comes out and just doesn't include what you had to say?
I wasn't sure I read that correctly. I read it again, and I sent an email then that I would resign as a result of that.
Do you remember what you wrote in your resignation email?
I said that report will haunt us. And it does, and it haunts me. The determination that Israel is not blocking humanitarian assistance is patently, demonstrably false.
We went to a press briefing at the US State Department to ask about Washington's support for Israel as famine has spread throughout Gaza. We've had aid organizations and relief groups who've said over and over again that Israel is using starvation as a tactic of war. How do you respond to the allegations of complicity of the US government, and what more will it take for the US to stop Israeli military funding?
So is the United States that has secured all of the major agreements to get more humanitarian assistance into Gaza, going back to the very early days, the first week after October 7th, when the Secretary traveled to the region and the President traveled to Israel, and together convinced Israel to open Rafah crossing to allow humanitarian assistance in. It has not been enough. There are obstacles. Sometimes those are logistical obstacles coming from Israel. Sometimes those are the nature of moving humanitarian assistance around in an armed conflict.
Under US law, it is required that any country receiving military support must not obstruct the flow of humanitarian aid during war. And every major rights group, from the United Nations to Human Rights Watch, has said that Israel is using starvation as a tactic of war. Do you disagree with them? And are you, one final question, are you not afraid of completely losing legitimacy, of being seen as being hypocritical when it comes to supporting human rights in one country, but not when it comes to Palestinians?
Let me just answer the first question. So I would encourage you to read the report that we issued on this very question 2 months ago that looked into Israel's compliance with international humanitarian law and their work and whether they had done a good enough job to let humanitarian assistance in, where we said that there were some roadblocks that needed to be overcome, and we had worked to overcome those, and we had seen Israel take steps to allow humanitarian assistance in.
When the President of the United States has to ask Israel to allow assistance in, that effectively is an admission that Israel is blocking humanitarian assistance.
By the US not adhering to its own laws, do they have blood on their hands, the US government?
Yes. We have made a decision not to control the thing that we have control over, and that is our military support to Israel. Even when we know they are blocking humanitarian assistance, which is a violation of our law.
When famines happen, it means many lives are already too far gone to save. Long after the war ends, Gaza's children will likely feel the effects of starvation for the rest of their lives.
الموضوع الستردي حيستمر لفترة طويلة حتى أن تصبح الوضع في شمال قطاع غزة إلى ما كان عليه سابقا ما قبل الحرب. صورة صعبة جدا أتخيل على الطفل. ففرصة النجاة للطفل في شمال قطاع غزة هي فرصة شبه معدومة.
In August, 5-month-old Mohammed was admitted to the hospital in serious condition. His mother Hala says he needs a special formula that's not available in Gaza. Like every baby at the hospital, the entirety of his life has been shaped by this war.
هو انولد في 11/2 في عز المجاعة، في عز النكبة، يعني في عز الكارثة في الحرب. ما كانش في غذاء للأم تيصير غذاء للطفل. مرعوبة إني أفقده في أي لحظة.
يجب أن نألف هذا الأمر. يجب أن نرفض بشكل يومي حدوث هذه الإبادة أو المأساة أو الحرب التجويعية التي تكون في شمال قطاع غزة. الحقيقة هي أسوأ مما توصل إلى الكاميرات.